Weight loss and nutrition, fact or fiction, the subject of today's Utah Matters, coming up next. Let's talk about does skinny mean healthy, and is breakfast the most important meal of the day? We're going to talk about that and other things when we come back with Dr. Larry Tucker and Dr. Jay Shetlin.
Have your cell phone ready. Any physician can treat someone following an auto accident, but not all physicians are trained to find the specific injuries that occur. The Utah Whiplash Group is the only organization in Utah to have certified auto accident specialist physicians and attorneys in the treatment of auto accident injuries and whiplash. If you or someone you love has been in an auto accident, you need to call the Utah Whiplash Group. Put this number in your cell phone right now: 8777-WHIPLASH. That is 877-794-4752, or go online to utahwhiplash.com.
Welcome back to Utah Matters. We're talking about the fact and fiction, myths or reality of weight loss and nutrition. We're with Dr. Larry Tucker and Dr. Jay Shetlin, two experts on the matters. Let's ask this question, this myth or reality. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Dr. Tucker, you want to take that first?
There's no question that breakfast is shown in the scientific literature to be a very important meal. People who eat breakfast tend to be healthier. With that said, I think it would probably be a little misleading to say that it's the most important, because they're all important. Whenever we eat, that's an important part of our lifestyle, and what we eat is important. We can have a very healthy breakfast but not eat well at lunch or dinner, and we haven't done ourselves much service there. So I think they're all important. Most people do better with breakfast. I don't think it's necessary. You can be healthy without eating breakfast, but the literature would suggest that most people who eat breakfast are healthier.
Dr. Jay?
I think it's a pretty important meal, especially if we're talking about weight loss, and that combined with exercise. The research out of Japan shows that we're actually exercising in the morning while you're still in a fasting state before breakfast is 300% or 3 times more effective at increasing some of the body chemicals for increasing your metabolism, increasing muscle mass. But then after you've worked the muscles, you have to have some food and nutrients for them. And that's, to me, why breakfast is so important. So we've got a good energy we've got energy through the day, and we've got the building blocks that the muscles need to then build up after exercise.
Let me lay it out this way. Let's take exercise out of the picture for just this day. Let's take 2,500 calories made up at 2 meals, or excuse me, 1 meal that has 2,500 calories, 3 meals that equal 2,500 calories, and it all contains the same food. Mm-hmm. You eat the 1 meal, one person eats the 1 meal at the end of the day, the other person eats the 3 meals during the day. Is there going to be an equal amount of weight loss and an equal result with nutrition? Is that person going to be just as healthy, going to be the same as are both people going to have the same result?
One meal of 2,500 calories, that's going to be tough. There's no question that 3 meals...
It's just sausage. Yes. It's the sausage meal.
That would do it.
No, fairly healthy foods, but...
Right.
Yeah.
I would vote more for 2 or 3 meals with the 2,500 calories. 1 meal with 2,500 calories probably isn't going to work well for most people.
But in terms of metabolism, when we talk about metabolism, does the 2 different styles of eating, does it have a different impact on metabolism?
Absolutely. You're gonna have spikes and valleys instead of just trying to keep an even flow if you spread out the calories over the day versus one single large meal. So yeah, I think it's going to be more beneficial to spread those out.
Let's talk about this one. Skinny means healthy. True or false?
There's no question that it is important to be lean. Just because a person is skinny doesn't mean that they're fit. You can be skinny and not exercise, not have a good cardiovascular system, that type of thing. And you can be skinny and not necessarily eat healthy foods. So there's a lot that goes with that. But if all factors are equal, if we're talking about a person being skinny and another person being overweight, there's no question that skinny leads to fewer diseases and is less of a health concern or health risk. Being overweight increases the risk of heart disease, increases the risk of high blood pressure, increases the risk of high cholesterol, increases the risk of diabetes. So as body fat increases, the literature very clearly shows that health risk increased dramatically.
Skinny doesn't necessarily mean healthy, but being obese
Definitely
means you're unhealthy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Let's say that Grandma was right and that you eating 3 balanced meals, what we'd all agree are balanced meals, maybe a minimum of processed food. Does that eliminate the need for vitamin supplements and other supplements?
It's your turn.
All right. Well, I argued with this for quite a while as I was pouring through research on this, because I felt like, hey, if we're getting our square meals, we should have the nutrients that we should have. But there's a lot of argument in the literature out there now on, soil's being depleted, you're not getting the same nutrients in the fruits and vegetables now that you had before. People usually don't, unfortunately, get the good square meals like Grandma talked about. Usually it's more fast food, at least 1 meal a day or something. So in my mind, it seems like supplementation is a pretty important thing in our day and age.
Okay. Any thoughts here? No?
I would say that we typically use supplementation as a safety net.
Mm-hmm.
If people are eating healthfully, there would be much less need for that safety net. But since most vitamins are inexpensive, most people consume vitamins as a safety net just to make sure they're getting their nutrients and that type of thing. I don't think a 1-a-day vitamin is a concern. In fact, the literature shows that comparing people who take a 1-a-day pill vitamin versus those that don't, there's no difference in mortality. We do have some pretty good research now, though, on some supplements. And you have to be very careful because there's an awful lot of push for dozens and dozens of supplements. And I think that gets to be into the fringes a bit. But for example, omega-3 fatty acids, fish oil. There's hundreds of studies now to show the value of omega-3s. And since most people don't consume much in the way of fish and they don't get much in the way of omega-3s, I would say most people would benefit from omega-3 fatty acid supplements.
Segue, fish oil is a fat, butter is a fat. Are there good fats and bad fats? How much should we pay attention to that?
Absolutely, there's good fats and bad fats, and I think we need to pay very close attention. We talked about a little earlier about in the 70s making the switch to low-fat and no-fat diets and how that's actually affected our health quite a bit. There are definitely healthy fats that we can eat and that we should eat, because if we don't have healthy fats in our diet, we're not making healthy cells, and we're constantly creating new cells every day, 300 billion, the research shows, to replace or replenish dying off cells. And the outer membrane of every one of those cells is made up of fats. So if we're not getting healthy fats in our diet, what is our body using to make these cells, and how healthy can they be if we don't have the right building blocks to make them? So I think it's important to have healthy fats, which the omegas are one of them. Olive oils, coconut oils are good. Animal fats in moderation is okay. Man-made stuff, not so good.
I agree that there are healthy and unhealthy fats. Most research shows that saturated fats that are not liquid at room temperature, usually coming from meats and animal product, they tend to be the least healthy, along with trans fats. But your polyunsaturated and your monounsaturated fats, which tend to be liquid at room temperature, they tend to come from plants, are very healthy.
So olive oil, coconut oil, those sorts of things are better for you.
Coconut oil actually has quite a bit of saturated fat in it, but
they're very healthy saturated. There's different ones, different scopes of it.
To me, the issue here is most fats that come from animals, and particularly mammals, tend to be less healthy. Okay. And I think the scientific literature shows that pretty well. On the other hand, we have to keep in mind, since we're also talking about weight management, that fats have more than twice as many calories per gram compared to carbohydrate and proteins. Carbohydrates and proteins only have 4 calories per gram. Fats have 9. So even though there are healthy fats, we can't eat them without limit because we won't be able to eat very much food. When we eat lots of fats, we get lots of calories fast.
Generally, you don't have to go out of your way to get your fat intake for the day, right? Really quickly before we go to break, back on the supplements, protein. You see, especially teenagers, dipping into that big jug of protein, filling up a blender with that, blend in 2 or 3 cups of that, not cups, but the dills. What's the science on that? Is that good or bad? Where's the protein going? Is it going into the water treatment plant, or is it going into the midsection, or is it going into muscle?
Well, I think protein's important to balance out. We're talking about sugars, we're talking about fats, now we're talking about protein. We really need to balance those out. They're all a necessary part of our diet, nutrition, and metabolizing properly to build proper cells. It's good to have the proteins. If you need an alternate source, that's basically a supplement source to get it, great. If you're trying to put on muscle mass, you usually need a little more protein. I don't think we as humans need as much protein as we think we do. And we look at babies, they double in size their first year, and human breast milk is only 3% fat, 3% protein. So how much protein do we really need?
Really quickly.
I agree with him on this almost 100% because the emphasis seems to be on high protein. Most people view high protein as high nourishment, high fitness, healthy. And actually, if you get into the literature and you look at high protein diets, people don't live as long. Mortality rates are higher when we consume high protein. Now, we do need protein, no question, but when we overemphasize protein, particularly animal protein, particularly mammal protein, we tend to have more heart disease and more cancer. So I would say the vast majority of Americans don't need protein supplements. Now, if an individual is trying to bulk up, particularly, gain lots of weight, lots of muscle mass, perhaps wants to be a football player, more protein is necessary. But we probably put too much stock into protein and not enough into healthy, complex carbohydrates.
More myths and facts and fiction when we come back. Become next.